Hello, my name is Roisin and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video I am going to be doing another reading vlog, but I think slightly different from a reading vlog I've ever done before. I am doing a reading vlog where all of the books were recommended to me, well not to me, but they were recommended in one specific video together as a group, and so I have decided to read them and see why this person thinks they go together and whether I enjoy them all. So I was watching Kayla from Books and Lala talking about trying to make you read low-rated books. So low-rated books that she'd read, trying to find an audience for them. And I have been getting more into short kind of horror, dark books, kind of atmospheric, nothing happens, but they're a bit dark and twisted, has been the way that my reading has been leading me recently. And so when I watched this video, I was suddenly intrigued. So let's watch the clip of it together. So we're going to watch what Kayla has to say about these books, and then I will get into reading them.
I could do Woman Eating, even though I know I already mentioned this as a recommendation for something else. Who knew that so many low-rated things would be good comps for low-rated things? Here's what I think about this. It is a slower, character-driven novel that has a lot of themes of loneliness and obsession, and it is a vampire, but it's not like an action-packed horror book. I feel like Freshwater by Akwaeke and Emezi could be an interesting recommendation.
I mean, that sounds exactly what I want. Not an action-packed horror, slower, character-based. Yeah, all of those things are really ticking off books list for me. That's what drew me to this. Woman Eating is not a book I have read yet, but it has one that I've been intrigued by. And she comps it here to Freshwater by Akwaeke and Emezi, which I have read and I didn't love. So I'm gonna say, disclaimer here at the beginning of the video, if I don't like these books, I don't think I can blame Kayla for it, because she said to recommend it if you like Freshwater, and I didn't really love Freshwater. So I'm probably doing something very wrong. It's just that I was intrigued by all of the books.
Hold on. Paired with some other like short horror, Follow Me to Ground by Sue Rainsford and Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. I think that if you liked all three of these and you enjoyed the themes of them, and again, I feel like the slower pace and the feeling of there's something weird going on in the background and you're almost waiting for it to come to a huge head, but then it doesn't. Like, if that's a story that you enjoy reading, did I give all of these 5 stars? Then I think Woman Eating could be a good one for you.
The reason that I decided to read these 3, despite not liking the only one of the 4 that I had read, is that I had been intrigued to Our Wives Under the Sea and Follow Me to Ground for a very long time. And so then Woman Eating, which is the one I don't have a physical copy of, was the 3rd. So I'm going to read these 3 books now, and see what I think, see if they intrigue me, see if they work for me. I can see the reason that Kayla recommended the 3 of them together. So I'm very excited to get into this, because these are the exact type of books I've been dying to read recently, but I was reading a lot of non-fiction last month, so I never got round to them. So yes, we're going to do that. We're going to go to Belgium. That's what this vlog is going to be about, and I will talk to you in a bit. So it is day 2 in Belgium now. We're going to explore a bit of Bruges in the morning, and then we're going to go to Ghent, which is a slightly bigger town, but I think with a smaller town centre, from as far as I can tell from my research. I've also begun reading Follow Me to Ground by Sue Rainsford. I'm not very far into it at all, just like 10% of the way into it. So far, I'm trying to work out if I like the writing or not. I feel like I do. It feels like there's quite a poetic thing to it, but I'm trying to work out whether I like it or whether I feel it's too precious. I think I'm going to have to continue in and see how I feel, because, yeah, I'm not sure at the moment. I feel conflicted. I know I definitely don't dislike it, but I'm not sure whether I'm into it yet, or if I feel like it's trying too hard. I don't know. I'm going to have to give it a go. But that will be for later time. I'll take it with me. I don't know how much reading I'll get done because me and my mum never stop talking. So it is our last day here in Bruges, on Brugge. Today we are leaving Brugge. We're going to go and get some chocolates and stuff to take home, and then we are going to Brussels for the day. Our train home is at 6 this evening, so we're going to try and get there for like 1 o'clock, spend a few hours, 4 hours wandering around to the Christmas markets there, and finally eating a Belgian waffle because I haven't had a Belgian waffle yet. I've got about halfway through Follow Me to Ground now, and I am enjoying it. I do think the writing is occasionally a little precious, a little overworked. It doesn't feel like ingrained in the voice. The voice doesn't feel completely cohesive. It feels like there's an attempt of a bit of trying too hard in terms of the voice. Sometimes it flows nicely and it feels like it works, but sometimes the juxtapositions of the two different types of language feel more clunky and less intentional. But it's an interesting book. It's about this father and daughter who came from the ground. So they're not like father and daughter in the traditional way, and they're not human, and they call humans cures, I think, is the assumption anyway, and they cure them by like cutting them open and taking the sickness out of them and then putting them in the ground to recover, essentially. And she's in a relationship with this cure. She's kind of getting to know this cure, and her father's doesn't really approve of it. But from what I can tell, it's a book where the plot does not really much in terms of plot. So yeah, I'm gonna keep reading it because, like I said, I am quite enjoying it, but I do think the writing could have been tightened up just a little bit. Hello, so obviously back from Belgium, back home now, and I haven't talked to you about books for a while because I've been quite ill, but I am kind of together now. My brain is still not functioning at full capacity, but we're going to do our best. So I finished Follow Me to Ground by Sue Rainsford, and I did start to like it more towards the end. Either I got into the rhythm of the language or some of the clunkiness of the language dissipated as the plot got more. There was more plot. It's just described as having no plot, and I don't think that that's true. Perhaps for people who read a lot more plotty books than I tend to. There was definitely stuff that happened and secrets that were revealed, although along with plot came plot holes. This person who sort of understands people and sees things about them misses the major secret that I got as soon as it was introduced. I mean, maybe she was purposefully avoiding it for personal reasons. Like, that didn't make much sense because that, like, knowing but not knowing wasn't really revealed. She was like surprised by the reveal, so it seemed strange to me. But overall, I think it was like a 3.5. I don't really give stars very often anymore, but it had some beauty, but like I said, sometimes it felt like it was writing for the beauty rather than that being held up throughout, if that makes sense. It felt like there were some moments where that felt a little uncomfortable, as if it didn't quite settle into its voice for a while. I also thought it could have been a bit creepier. Descriptions of things that were giving atmosphere that were unnecessary, and then a lack of attention paid, like the ground, I felt like was very vaguely described and was kind of just left out. And so I felt like the magic of it, or the like world that we're in, while I never want them to be like carefully explained to me, I felt like it wasn't quite fully fleshed out, as it were. Like, if you're looking for a book that has that creepiness, the darkness, the atmosphere, but isn't going to be taxing and isn't going to take up too much of your time or your mental capacity, then this probably would work for you. I have begun Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfeld, and this is about a woman whose wife went down in a submarine, and she's back now, but something happened in the submarine and her wife is no longer the same. It's told from two voices. So one, we have the wife who was left behind, and her living with her wife who has returned, and the difference, her feeling uncertain and not knowing what's going on, and there's lots of weird things happening. And then the other voice is the wife when she was going under the sea, and I am enjoying it. The contrast between the two voices is really, really clear. So the voice of the wife left behind when these sort of unsettling, uncertain things are going on has that atmosphere to it, and it feels very like detached in a way that I enjoy. It has a sort of distance from this wife, and it's just uncomfortable, but in a really nice way, and I'm really enjoying that. And then the voice of the wife who went under the sea is much more frank and much more straightforward, and I think that makes sense considering like the plot. This woman who was something before and is something different now, so the woman who went under the sea is not the same. So yeah, I'm only at 20% of the way through, so there's still a lot to go through, but so far I am enjoying it. It's interesting because I've been thinking about voice when reading these books, and all of them are in first person, and I think I prefer third person. Just something I'm noticing, that I can find first person a little irritating. But yeah, I've still got a ways to go. I'm halfway through Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield, and I'm really, really enjoying this book so far. I haven't enjoyed a book like this in a while. This year has been a weird reading year for me. There have been lots of books that I've read and just not got on with the way that I wanted to, but this book is really working for me. I love the writing, I love the stripped backness and the feeling of discomfort and detachment. So we've got two narrators, and Mila, is that her name? I'm really bad at remembering names. Miri is kind of a spiky character. She's kind of not the nicest person, but I'm really enjoying her perspective. I think it's really well done, and I really like her voice, and I really like the description. I like the water metaphors. I think they're being done in a good way that isn't like over the top, isn't too on the nose. It works very well. I think there's some lovely poetic language, and I think that the atmosphere is what I'm really enjoying about it. I like the creepy ominousness when we're in the submarine, and the weird disconnect between the characters. I'm really enjoying it. I think it kind of gives me Sally Rooney vibes a bit in terms of the style of the writing, but the subject matter is entirely different. But I really enjoy that. I think it's got such a wonderful voice, which I'm really pleased about. I feel like in this video I'm talking a lot about the writing, and I don't know why that's what's speaking to me at the moment. I definitely am someone who enjoys good writing, which is such a vague thing to say. What does that even mean? But I'm someone who definitely notices the writing when I'm reading, but that's definitely not the only thing that I want in a book. I don't know, I'm enjoying the way that this is exploring the ideas, and it's giving you space to think. Like, it's not laying everything out on the table, it's kind of using a lot of metaphorical language. The whole thing is kind of a metaphor, and it's giving you space to like come to your own conclusions and think about things, not conclusions in regards to the plot, but in regards to what you even think that they're talking about. I think it gives the reader a lot of space, and that is something that I really enjoy in literature. Finished Our Wives Under the Sea though, and I loved this book. I absolutely loved this book, and I'm so glad I did, because it's been ages since I loved a book, so I'm very, very glad I finally got around to this. Everyone I know who's read it has loved it as well, and so I'm not alone in that. The ending actually made me cry, and I'm not a big book crier, so this one really got me. I mean, I was kind of in a teary mood, but it did get me. Yeah, I really loved the writing of this. I thought it was so beautiful, poetic, evocative, and at the same time it didn't feel pretentious or overdone. It just felt very clean. There was a detachment to it and a disconnect between these people. I just thought it was wonderful. I loved all the metaphors in there. I loved it as a look at loss and a look at losing a relationship, a look at the distance between these two people and the changing in people. I just thought it was so wonderfully done, and really, really beautiful. Really beautiful on a sentence level and also on an emotional level. The connections and the trying to connect. It's gross. It went to the grossest parts. There was one bit that I was like, oh wow, but the way that I wanted it to, like in a way that was beautifully gory, which is what I think I want. Either beautifully gory or detachedly horrific. Those are kind of where I'm at with horror and grossness. Yeah, and I really loved the descriptions of the ocean and their relationship and the people. Yeah, absolutely wonderful, really beautiful. I don't know if I told you what it was about, probably, but I thought it was wonderful and I'm so glad I read it. So there you go. I've also started Woman Eating, and I'm not enjoying the voice of that so much, again, in first person. So this is about a woman who is a vampire, and she's also an art student. And her mum is sick, and she's just put her mum into a home, and she's trying to get pig's blood so that she can feed. But she's not finding it easy to access, and that's making her hunger grow and her sort of attraction to people's necks grow. Again, I'm only about 20% of the way through, so there's still a lot to go through. That's just the setup. But so far I'm finding the voice a little cloying. There's something about it that just feels a little self-pitying, which I don't tend to love. A little obvious and a little on the nose, like I'm wanting some more subtlety from it. I don't know if it's in part because I'm listening to the audiobook, because I couldn't get hold of the physical copy, and the narrator's voice is a little whiny, and maybe that's kind of where I'm getting that from more than the writing, because I'm finding it tough to care about the book. I'm finding it tough I don't feel hooked in. So I'm reading these books because of Kayla from Books and Lala, and I feel like if she was doing a vlog like this, she would be doing stuff like The Person. But I can't drive. I don't drink coffee. I also don't live anywhere near the mountains. In fact, I went to the opposite of the mountains. I went to Belgium, which is like part of the lowlands. It's basically below sea level, the whole country. And I'm not going to be taking you on a walk because it's just got light, and I have to leave for work in 5 minutes. And by the time I get home from work at 4 o'clock, it will be dark. So there is no way I can take you on a walk. Although, I have 3 weather apps on my phone, and one of them is predicting snow tomorrow. So if it does snow, that's quite Canadian. I lived in Canada for a year, and it snowed from October to May. So definitely think that snow is Canadian, although I was studying in Waterloo, Ontario, which I think is about as far from me as it is from Kayla, because Canada is a bit big. Hello, so I don't know if you can see outside. I think it's just frost. I don't think it snowed, but everything was covered in a blanket of white when I woke up this morning. Well, I am now halfway through Woman Eating by Khoda, and I don't think my opinions have really changed a lot since I last spoke to you. I'm not really enjoying it. It's fine, and I think that the story could be interesting. Just the style of writing, I think that's mostly putting me off. I feel like it's very over-explaining of everything, which I've talked about how much I dislike that in books. Over and beyond what it needs to make sure you really understand she's a vampire. I wished I could do this, but because of my condition, it's like, we know you're a vampire. You don't need to restate at least once a page that you are a vampire. There was a moment as well where she was like looking at stuff on television, I think, all this stuff on television, or reading all these articles online, and they were all related to food, and she can't eat human food because she's a vampire, and it was like, oh, and everything was related to food. It's like, just let me realise that everything is related to food. You don't have to overstate everything. Like, this isn't a YA book where I feel like a lot of the time they want to make themselves very clear. They don't really do subtlety as much. I'm sure there are YA books that do, but the majority of YA books definitely try to be more clear. But this book, I think, is supposed to be adult fiction, and it's definitely giving me more YA vibe. Our main character is very much like a woe is me kind of character. I often like books with unlikable characters, but I don't like books where their unlikableness is because of their own self-pity. I find that very hard to get on board with. I kind of wish there was more like revelry, more like enjoyment in the disgust factor of her eating blood and everything. Most people don't make those connections so obvious to themselves because when you're inside your own head you have all the context, but I feel like she's constantly contextualizing things in a way that doesn't feel natural, and that's why I'm kind of having issues with the writing. The story itself is fine, but yeah, the main character I'm finding very grating, and the writing style as well. It's just not for me. I definitely preferred Follow Me to the Ground. Finally did snow, so I thought it would be good to do my wrap up of this video now, except you can't actually see the snow. I promise it's out there, but it can't focus on me and the snow at the same time. There you go. Just the white balance is wrong. Yes, I am filming in here. I don't know if you can tell, I can see my breath, but I have got an electric blanket, a cup of tea. So I finished Woman Eating by Khoda, and I did kind of enjoy it more towards the end, once I felt like it got into its stride and didn't have to keep telling me she was a vampire over and over again. I enjoyed that a bit more. Hang on, oh, it's squiffy on you. It's still, I just think the voice wasn't for me, and so if the voice of something is irritating, then you're just never going to love the book. It's hard to get into a book when, sorry, there's so much steam from my tea because it's so cold in here. It's hard to love a book when you find the voice irritating. I just didn't really enjoy it. I didn't really warm to it ever, and I felt like the ending was a bit of a cop-out. I really felt like it could have gone there more than it chose to, and it felt a little too safe and a little too easy, and I don't know if it was using vampirism as a metaphor for an eating disorder or sort of a cultural distancing, but it never really seemed to cohere. The metaphor never really became clear, and it seemed like it was trying to. It wasn't just a strict, well, vampirism is always a metaphor, but it never felt like it was sure what it was doing with that metaphor, and so yeah, it didn't really work for me. So I read 3 books because Kayla from Books and Lala said that there were 3 that go well together, are recommendations. 1 I really didn't like, 1 was pretty good, and 1 I absolutely loved. So I wouldn't necessarily say I would recommend these 3 together. I can understand where it's coming from because it is not like action-packed, but there is elements of the grotesque in all of them, elements of the body grotesque particularly. I think that it's just that the style of writing, I guess the Follow Me to Ground and Our Wives Under the Sea have a similar kind of detached lyrical writing style, so I can see how those 2 could be done together, and they are all 3 books which focus on metaphor and resonance of images rather than plot, or like they're not straightforward. There is an element of reading between the lines for all of them, so I can see kind of. I just think that Our Wives Under the Sea was so much more successful than the other 2, and Follow Me to Ground was so much more successful than Woman Eating. So I suppose it depends what you're looking for as a reader. I suppose thematically and in terms of genre, they are probably in the same way, but I would say that Woman Eating felt the most like young, youthful, YA, easiest to access. Like if you've never read books that are like no plot, just vibes, then maybe that would be like a way in if you're coming from a more like YA or just more commercial angle. Whereas Our Wives Under the Sea, I mean, you might love it even if you were coming from that angle, but I feel like it is more, I don't know, I think what I liked about it was that it managed to combine the two so well. I don't know. I think everyone would love this, but maybe I'm wrong, because lots of the books that I think everyone should love, people think are boring. So that is my wrap up. I'm done. I could keep rambling forever, so I'm going to leave now. But thank you for watching. Please remember to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and to subscribe if you haven't already. I put out new videos twice a week for the most part, and I will see you again very soon. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.